I'm Paul Whittaker. It's the 24th of January 2018. I'm at the Derbyshire County Ground and I'm talking to
Tony Borrington.
Oh, thank you very much for coming in again, Tony. You played in the 1970s, I think you made your debut in 1970?
I did, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
How would you compare, you think, playing cricket when you played to playing now? Would you like to have played now?
It's difficult to compare eras because, you know, a good player is a good player in that era, and when people are comparing the types of games, it's a completely different game now, the approach to it, the 2020, but most of my generation, myself, Alan Hill, Colin Tunnicliffe, would look back and say that we felt honoured to have played throughout the 70s. And I think the main reasons were that it was an international league in those days, in terms of the test matches were not taking place on the huge scale that they are now. So it meant that the best overseas in the world were playing county cricket, and counties could have two overseas. So you would play Hampshire and they'd have Gordon Greenidge and Andy Roberts. You could play Notts and they'd have Clive Rice, Richard Hadley. These were top draw world class players. But not only that, all the England players played in county cricket. So your own England players, Bob Taylor, Jeff Miller, Mike Hendrick would be playing. I saw an interview by Jeff Boycott recently, and he's comparing his era in the 70s, where he would have played more than half the games for Yorkshire, whereas Joe Root, because of the scheduling now and the demands on him, they're probably lucky if he plays one or two games. So it was really a special time to be playing. 1970 was the launch of the John Player League, the launch of 40 over cricket. That took off and attracted huge audiences. When it was actually first brought in, people weren't sure whether there would be an appetite for the shorter game, but they loved it, and you'd go wherever we played, and you played in a lot of outgrounds in Derbyshire like Darleydale, Buxton, Heanor, Ilkeston. Wherever you went, there were packed grounds. Obviously not the health and safety limitations they have now, so people would, you know, as many, you could get 6,000 in, you know, in fairly small grounds watching, and it was a terrific atmosphere. And again, we were playing against the best players in the world, and so you look back, and is there more money in the game now? Yes, there is. Are there more perks for the players in terms of sponsorship? I'm sure they are, you know, and I'm pleased to see that cricket has moved on like football, and players are better remunerated. But it was just a golden era to play in, Paul, you know, with 40 overs starting, and us having world-class players as well. Eddie Barlow, you know, Kirsten, John Wright, and eventually Michael Holding, these sorts of players. It cannot ever happen again, in my view. Those days are gone, where you'll get a current top international player playing the whole season in county cricket.
Yeah, do you think you would have liked to have played, I mean, you're talking about playing 40 over cricket, would you like to have had the opportunity to play in the 2020 competition?
Yeah, it was an issue. People would say the way 2020's played, and I love 2020. I'm not sort of firmly entrenched in the 70s and 80s, that one of those that I'm a die-hard. You know, I go all around the country watching Derbyshire in 2020, and I love it. I absolutely love it. The improvisation, the shots they play, the skill they have, the scores that they amass of 20 overs. I think it's just wonderful, and I really enjoy it. But when people say to me, well, you know, do you think players in your generation could have done that? I'm sure that the Vivian Richards of this world would have been, if that had been around in their era, I'm sure we would have taught, practiced, learnt these new skills. But sometimes the game evolves, absolutely evolves, and the expectations, bear in mind, in the 70s was that in a 40 over game, if you got 200, you won the game. Now you compare that with what's happening in this generation now, where if they don't get 300 in a 50 game, and so the expectations have gotten much higher. Maybe pitches have got better, maybe bats have got better. But if you look through all the generations, you know, the skill levels must be getting higher. But do I look at the modern 2020 and think, I wish we'd had some of that around in my day? I don't think we'd have known at the time how to play it the way they do now. And I'll give you a really good example, Paul. I'm guessing on the year, or I think it was 78, we played Glamorgan at Chesterfield, and it rained on the Sunday most of the day, and at 5 o'clock it was deemed fit to play, and the umpire said it will be a 10 over game, right? A 10 over game. So we've only played 40 over, there's no 2020, so we're now playing in a 10 over game, 5 bowlers, 2 overs each. We lost the toss and we were batting, and if you read the report in the Derbyshire yearbook at the time, it actually says, and I know this pretty much by heart, Barlow and Borrington opened for Derbyshire and rattled up 30 off the first 6 overs. Now think about that very carefully. 30 in a 10 over game. We then, you know, we then smashed it as much as we could, and we ran and we slogged it, and we finished up with 62 off our 10 overs. Imagine that, a 10 over game, 62. We got back in the changing room, you know, in between innings, and if we'd known what high-fiving and glove punching was, we'd have been doing it, because we said, that's more than a run of ball, they won't get near it. They finished up, Glamorgan, in their 10 overs, 42 for 4. Alan Jones, who is still the biggest run scorer in the history of Glamorgan cricket, something like 35,000 runs, he batted all the way through the Glamorgan innings for 21 not out, and they lost the game. And so we didn't know how to play 10 over, and to a large extent 40 over when it first came in. But would the great players have adjusted to it if it had been round more? I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would. But you know, trying to compare eras when there's a 40-50 year gap, it's very difficult. But I think that just sums up a little bit for you the expectations and the targets that we had in one day cricket. 40 over game, me opening the John Wright, the target was always, let's get 30 for none off the first 10, and then we can build. Now, if they've not got 60 off the first 10, they're disappointed, aren't they?
Yes, certainly expectations of scores have rocketed.
Yeah.
So you said there, you got 30 runs off the first 6 overs.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is a power play in a 2020 game,
Yeah.
and you're looking at 50, 60
Mm.
in that period.
Yeah. But all professional sport evolves, Paul, doesn't it?
Yes,
it gets better and better.
Yes.
If you look at world records in athletics in the 70s, they've all been smashed by now. And so I'm not one of those that looks back and says the game in my day was better. It was a better game and so on. It clearly moved on the skill levels that these people have now. You know, batters and bowlers. I look at it and I look at some of it. You know, the Joss Butlers of this world, the Joe Roots. I'm in awe of them. But the era that I played in, we were never taught or encouraged to try those skills. And so that's the era that you played in. But to go back to the first question you asked me, why did I enjoy it so much? Because I played with and against truly world-class players. At the start of my career, I'm playing against the likes of Dexter, Cowdrey, Graveney, world-class players. We're playing Notts, and I'm playing against Gary Sobers twice a year, home and away. And I'm exposed to truly, truly great players, and that to me was a privilege, and I look back at it as a wonderful experience, and I guess, yeah, I look back at it with a lot of pride as well to have been around in that era.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about county cricket. Can we just talk a little about when you've been playing in club cricket? And I have a memory of not actually being there, but reading about you and your son Paul putting on a big stand in a club match. Was it an opening partnership?
I think it may have been one wicket down, but I think most parents will tell you that there's a special joy about being able to play, whether it's football, cricket, whatever, with your own son, and because I was sort of 40 when we had Paul, that meant that when he's 10, 11, you know, and going through the gears in his own career, I'm sort of rapidly ascending into the 50s, and so I was never actually able to stay with him and play Premier League at the same time. So all I could do was, as a young lad, when he was 12 and 13, was to play in Ticknell thirds and then Ticknell seconds, because of course, you know, my hand-eye coordination had slipped down the scale. But the game that you're mentioning about, yeah, he got 100 and I think I got close to 100, but it's an indescribable thing to the joy of actually being at the other end and actually batting with your son. So I mean, at that stage, you're just happy that they're playing cricket. You know, if someone had said to me, he'll go on and play 50 first-class games, you'd have snapped their hand off, wouldn't you? So great joys with your own son.
Yeah. Did you see any similarities in the way that Paul played to the way that you played?
Not necessarily, because I think he hadn't seen me. He'd never seen me play at the highest level, unless he wants to watch the old videos. And so he was very much his own player, but he had a mental strength that I believe that my generation, like Alan Hill and I had. He always made himself difficult to get out, which was the mantra of our era, wasn't it? Don't give your wicket away. And so he always built his game on being able to bat long, and you look at that, and did he get that from me? Did he develop it himself? I think a lot of his game approaches he developed himself in the era that he played.
Yeah, certainly from a spectator's point of view, you could see similarities in the way that you played and the way that Paul played, which probably was, but they say that this mental toughness and prizing your own wicket, which maybe the increased importance of limited overs cricket these days has reduced that to some extent.
Yeah. No, I think it has. You know, I feel for players like in the modern era, someone like James Vince, who I think is a very talented player. I've seen him down here scoring runs for Hampshire, and of course he's been criticised because I don't know the actual stats, but he's been out caught behind in the Test series in Australia, probably 70-80%, probably more than that at the time, leaping, as we say, at wide ones, trying to drive at wide ones that we would have left in my generation. But James Vince is playing in an era now where his one-day games have probably become more important than the Championship, where he is expected to score early on and to score quickly, and so a lot of his mindset is in possibly thinking, don't let the ball pass, whereas in our generation the coaches and the mindset was, we have to bat long. And I'll never forget the advice I was given at the start of my career playing in the early 70s. It was, when you start the day as an opening batsman, remember this: the first session belongs to the bowlers. It's tough. The second session in the afternoon is 50-50, you and the bowlers. The third session from tea onwards belongs entirely to you. And the secret is, still being in there when you get to that phase and the game eases off. So that was the, for us, it was not, we need a flying start, we need to have 100 on the scoreboard by lunch. It was, let's bat long, let's bat throughout a day. And that was what we grew up with.
Yes, in the 70s, you would, if you got to 270 for 4 at the end of the day, you think, well, it's been a good day, lots of runs, we've batted well.
Yeah.
These days, you're thinking of 350, 370.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a day's play. If you get fewer than 300 runs, it's been a slow day. I
think mindset's different, but don't forget also that we had uncovered wickets. Now you talk to modern players about, they find it very difficult to take on board that you could actually start the game on a beautifully prepared pitch. And don't forget we played county cricket Saturday, Monday, Tuesday with a Sunday league game in between. So you could field on the Saturday at somewhere like Bristol or Cheltenham while the opposition play on a perfect pitch. It could rain on the Sunday all afternoon and you'd go back the next day to play on that pitch and all they would have covered would have been the bowler's run-ups. So they can run up, but you imagine it being hard underneath and wet on top and facing the likes of Mike Proctor without helmets, where you knew the ball would go straight through the top and would sort of leap at you. So it was a vastly different era in terms of they wanted to try and get plenty of results. Also, they brought in this 100 over limitation in the first innings, and the target then in 100 overs was 300. That would have been our target.
Yes. Well, you were just talking then about it can rain on the Sunday between games. Did you play in the famous game at Buxton where it snowed?
No, I didn't. That was 75. I didn't play in that game, but they simply just put the stumps back in and played. And Ashley Harvey Walker, who's a good friend of mine, I know, actually took his teeth out, his false teeth, and gave them to Dickie Bird and said, "These cost me a lot of money, Dick. Put those in your pocket," because he'd already been hit in the mouth and his front teeth were false ones. And you played, it was a wing and a prayer. I defy anybody to go out and, even in the modern era, and go on an uncovered pitch, absolutely saturated with the sun beating down on it, and bat all day and get 400.
And what sort of protection did you have then? Pads, box, anything else?
Yeah, you had, obviously, we didn't have helmets, we didn't have arm guards, we didn't have chest protectors. And the big one was we didn't have a thigh pad on the right leg, which now is standard. They have these sort of shorts where you can put a thigh pad in both legs. And the number of times at top level you would get hit on the inside of the right thigh where it would turn you round, and you'd then be having the physio working on this huge bruise on the inside of your thigh, which you can bet your bottom dollar a week later would get hit again, by somebody else bowling quick at you. But I guess that was all we knew. It was all we knew, wasn't it?
Yes, different here. Those were the conditions.
That's all we knew.
You just got out and had to cope with them.
But I would say this to you, Paul, nothing makes you move quicker than fear. And I defy anybody from my era, when you're stood 22 yards away, or 20 yards if you look at where they bowl from where you're standing, in just your cap, against the likes of Andy Roberts and Malcolm Marshall, you are going to feel fear, I promise you. But when you're feeling that fear, it makes you razor sharp in your reactions. You're not complacent because you know this is serious if I get this wrong. Yes. Really serious.
Right. Thank you very much for now, Tony. Okay. We've reached the end of this recording session, so we'll have another chat a bit later. Thank you.
Okay.